So you're thinking about learning English, maybe improving what you already know, but you're wondering if you really need a classroom or, to move abroad.
Hmm.
Well, this deep dive might just be for you. We found some really fascinating stories, real people getting seriously good at English, basically from their own homes.
Exactly. We're not talking formal courses here. These are personal accounts, people figuring out how to use what's around them,
Yeah.
resources readily available at home consistently and, well, smartly.
Right. And our mission today really is to dig into these experiences and pull out the most practical, the most useful nuggets of wisdom.
Yeah, the actionable stuff.
We want to give you a clearer path, maybe some techniques you haven't thought of for your own English learning journey right where you are.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. What actually sparked this? Why did these folks decide to, tackle English learning at home in the first place?
Well, one reason that came up was pretty specific. The 2020 lockdown.
Ah, right. Time.
Exactly. Suddenly, people had all this unexpected time on their hands. And learning English felt like a productive way to use it, sort of making the best of a strange situation.
That makes sense. Constraints breeding opportunity, in a way.
Mhm.
But there was another motivator, too, right? Something different.
Yeah, the other story highlighted someone who really wanted to connect with foreign tourists they encountered.
Okay.
So they decided to kind of create their own uh, mini immersion bubble, just surrounding themselves with English as much as possible in their daily life.
I like that term, mini immersion. It really gets at the idea that you don't necessarily need to go somewhere.
Precisely. And it highlights how much English is actually already around us. You've got movies, music, books.
YouTube, an endless resource.
Definitely. Your home can become this surprisingly rich English environment if you approach it intentionally.
It's less about finding special learning materials and more about strategically using the authentic stuff that's like already there. You're curating your environment.
Okay, so environment set. Let's get into the nuts and bolts. The daily routines. It seems like mornings were pretty important.
Yes, starting the day with some dedicated English time seems to be a common thread. It sets the tone.
One person's morning routine involved listening. Podcasts, YouTube channels, they specifically mentioned TED Talks, English Class 101,
Hmm.
while having breakfast. Kind of passive intake. But then they followed it up with something active,
Which was,
writing down 5 new words they encountered, looking them up, and then this seems key actually writing their own sentences using those words.
that's a really nice combo. You get the listening exposure, the natural flow, and then you actively grapple with new vocabulary. Making those sentences forces you to, actually use the word, not just recognize it.
Makes sense, solidifies it.
Right. It helps build those connections in your brain.
Okay, and the second person, their morning was a bit different.
A little different, yeah. Focus more on reading and speaking, actually. They'd read one short news article. BBC Learning English was the source mentioned.
Slowly, right?
Yeah. Emphasized reading slowly, really understanding and highlighting words they didn't know.
Okay.
And then they did shadowing practice.
Shadowing. Explain that a bit.
It's basically repeating sentences immediately after hearing a native speaker, trying to mimic their pronunciation, their intonation, the rhythm.
Ah, like echoing them.
Exactly. The goal is to really tune your ear and your mouth to the sounds and flow of natural English. One person described it as like training a muscle.
Training your mouth like a muscle. I like that. It makes it feel more physical, more achievable.
It addresses the pronunciation side directly, whereas the first routine was maybe more vocabulary and comprehension focused. Different angles.
Okay, but speaking, that's often the big hurdle when you're alone, right? No one to talk to. How did they practice speaking?
Yeah, that's always the challenge. But they had some pretty genius solo strategies.
Like what?
Well, one was super simple, actually, just recording themselves speaking on their phone every day,
Oh,
even just for a minute or two. The example given was describing their day. Today I woke up at 7. Then simple stuff.
forces you to think in English, though.
Exactly. It gets you formulating thoughts directly in the language, even if it's basic. Low stakes, just you and your phone.
A private rehearsal almost.
Oh,
And the other method,
the other one was mirror talk.
mirror talk, like talking to yourself in the mirror.
Yep. Standing there and having a conversation with your reflection. They admitted it felt pretty weird at first,
I can imagine.
but apparently you get used to it, and it becomes quite a fun, effective way to practice. It simulates a conversation visually.
Huh. Interesting. What's the main benefit of these solo methods, do you think?
Well, the big one is probably zero fear of judgment.
Right. No one's listening except maybe you later.
Exactly. You can
Okay.
stumble, make mistakes, try things out without feeling self-conscious. Plus, listening back to those recordings, you can actually catch your own grammar errors or pronunciation issues. Self-correction.
Gotcha. So beyond these focused practice sessions, did they do anything to just weave English into the day more generally?
Absolutely. That seemed really important too, making it less of a study subject and more just part of the background hum of life.
How so?
One really practical tip was changing the language setting on their phone and social media.
Ah, to English.
To English, yeah. It seems small, but think how often you look at your phone. Suddenly you're forced to read little bits of English all day long. Weather apps, notifications, menus.
That's clever. You're learning without even trying, almost. Passive exposure again.
hmm And building vocabulary related to your daily digital life. Very relevant.
What else? Any other little tricks?
Another one was the word of the day sticky note.
Okay.
Keeping a sticky note with one new word on their desk somewhere visible. And the goal was to try and use that word actively, like at least 3 times during the day.
Forcing active recall.
Exactly. Not just seeing the word, but consciously trying to slot it into a thought, or maybe even say it aloud if they were doing mirror talk later. It really helps cement it.
And what about entertainment? Movies, shows,
Yeah, the strategy there was English subtitles only.
no translation subtitles.
Nope. Resisting that urge. The idea is to force your brain to connect the sounds you're hearing with the English words on the screen and the context. It pushes your listening comprehension.
Makes sense. You have to rely more on the English itself.
Right. Over time, it helps you stop mentally translating everything and start processing directly in English.
So the learning didn't just happen in the morning or scattered through the day. Sounds like evenings had a role too.
They did. The evening seemed focused on consolidation, reviewing and reinforcing what came up during the day.
How did they do that?
One person kept a short diary, just a few sentences each night, written in English.
Followed by quickly reviewing the vocabulary list they'd made that morning.
Nice way to practice writing and loop back to the new words. Active recall again.
And the other evening routine.
They called it review and reflect. This involved going over the new words learned, maybe writing a short paragraph, specifically using those words.
Okay, active application.
And sometimes watching a short scene from a favorite TV show in English and trying to repeat some of the lines. More shadowing, basically.
So again, it's about actively using the language, not just passively reviewing.
Precisely. Revisiting the material, using it in writing or speaking before bed, seems to really help lock it into longer-term memory.
Okay, but let's be real. Learning a language, especially on your own, isn't always smooth sailing. You hit plateaus, you feel stuck.
Oh, absolutely. Motivation can definitely dip. That came up too.
How did they deal with that? How did they, stay motivated when it felt hard?
Well, acknowledging it is normal, first off.
Yeah.
But they had a couple of good strategies. One was that recording practice we mentioned earlier.
Right, recording yourself speaking.
But doing it consistently, say, once a month. Then when you feel like you're not improving, you listen back to a recording from 3 or 6 months ago.
And you hear the difference.
Exactly. It provides concrete, audible proof of progress. That can be a massive boost when you're feeling discouraged.
That's a great idea, like an audio progress report. What else?
The other thing was keeping a progress journal. Not just for vocabulary, but maybe noting down small wins, things they understood, conversations they tried.
So you can look back?
Yeah. When you're feeling down about your current level, you flip back a few months and realize, wow, I couldn't do that back then. It provides perspective.
Perspective is key.
And one account used a really nice analogy. They said, language progress is like growing a plant.
Okay.
Sometimes the growth is slow. You can't see it day to day. But if you keep watering it consistently, keep practicing eventually, you will see the results. Patience and consistency.
I like that. Consistent watering. Okay, so as we kind of bring this all together, what are the main takeaways for someone listening right now who's thinking, okay, I want to try this at-home English learning thing?
I think the biggest message really is that it's absolutely doable. You can achieve a high level of English proficiency without leaving your house, without expensive programs.
It's not some impossible dream.
Not at all. But it comes down to building a routine. Something simple, something you can actually stick with.
Consistency over intensity.
That's huge, yes. Little bits every day are far more effective than, say, cramming for 5 hours once a week.
And making it enjoyable, right? Finding stuff you actually like listening to or reading in English.
Crucial. If it feels like a chore, you won't stick with it. Find your fun movies, music, podcasts about your hobbies, whatever it is.
And finally, trying to touch on all the skills, yeah.
Yes. Don't just read or just listen. Try to incorporate a little bit of speaking, listening, reading, and writing into your routine each day, even if it's just 10 or 15 minutes for each. That balanced practice makes a big difference.
Because bottom line, these stories show it works. If these individuals could figure it out and succeed learning English at home.
Then you absolutely can too.
Okay, so here's something to think about as we finish up. We've talked about a lot of different strategies today. Morning routines, mirror talk, sticky notes, subtitles, journaling.
Mhm.
Which one of those kind of sparked something for you? Which one felt like, I could maybe try that?
Maybe it's the shadowing or just changing your phone language.
Yeah, think about how you could realistically weave just one or two of these ideas into your own daily life. It doesn't have to be a massive overhaul.
Remember that plant analogy?
Yeah.
Small, consistent watering. Those little efforts, done regularly, are really what build fluency over time. It all adds up.